Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Sterling Live. My name is Caitlin Brower. I am Sterling's social media manager. We come to you live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern across LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And yet again, this week, we have another amazing episode lined up for you. So I'm super excited today because my guest is Jennifer Ketchens. She is our Chief Diversity and Social Responsibility Officer. And today, here is our topic. I'm going to get it on screen for you guys. We are talking about the importance of diversity and inclusion. So, Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. And can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Sure, Caitlin. Thank you for having me. Jennifer Ketchens, and I am the new Chief of Diversity and Social Responsibility for Sterling. I just was promoted to that position in June of 2020.
Very good.
So, I am really excited about this opportunity that I have for Sterling.
No, that's great. And, as I'm clapping, throwing up my thumbs up, congratulations. Such a great, promotion for you. Such a great move on behalf of Sterling. So congratulations. And I'm really excited to get into this topic today. It is a timely conversation for sure. And for our audience across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, just a reminder, you can ask questions throughout the show. So just go to the comment part of our post and go ahead and ask questions, and I will get them over to Jennifer as I see fit. So let's go ahead and get into the topic today. So I do want to start off with an overview of diversity and inclusion. So for our audience right now, can you explain your current role and the team?
Sure, absolutely. So my current role is the new Chief of Diversity Officer, and in that role, it's really interesting. So before I go into the role that I'm in now, let's talk about my experience and my tenure. So I've been with Sterling it'll be 6 years in February, and I came to Sterling a few years ago to implement and build our procurement organization. So my background, just for everyone that's listening, is in supply chain management. I've been doing supply chain management for over 25 years, which I'm dating myself. And within supply chain, I've done numerous jobs, and procurement and logistics is one of the key roles that I've had over the years. So I came into Sterling to build the organization and also to centralize and put in, compliance and policies and guidelines and things of that nature. So I did that for 5.5 years. Going into diversity, into this new position I have now, this is very new to me, and of course in my background, but I am here to partner with our Chief People Officer on the overall people strategy. And my lens for that strategy is in recruiting, promotion, training, opportunities, and compensation for all people that experience systemic or cultural biases. So that's really my role here. Yeah. The way that I'm going to do those things is implementing different strategies and programs and policies and metrics to measure where Sterling is in our organization. So I have a global responsibility, and my team will focus on global and regional strategies for D&I. Everything that impacts the U.S., of course, which, what's going on in the world today, but also regional strategies for APAC, EMEA, and also Canada as well.
Yeah, and I do love that you bring up the global aspect of things. If you tune in every week, I have a lot of great thought leaders join us from Sterling. And one of the things we touch on always is that we are a global organization. That's truly where our expertise lies every single day. So even bringing in a program like this, bringing in a new role like this, we're not going to forget about the global aspect of things. So I really do appreciate that you brought that up for our audience. So just a little bit more into an overview of things, more so your overview of things. What does diversity and inclusion mean to you?
Oh, so it means a lot, right? So personally, it means a lot. So the definition that I use in this space right now is, diversity is the what, and inclusion is the how. Right. So diversity focuses on the makeup of the workforce. Like what do we have in our workforce? Is it gender? What type of race, age, sexual orientation, things like that. Inclusion is more measured on the culture that enables our diversity to thrive. Right. So how do we thrive within our organization and our culture with our diversity? One key thing, and why I say it's personal, Sterling has spent 2 years, for the past 2 years, working on gender equality in Sterling. And that is a huge thing. That's a huge milestone. That's a very positive thing to have. We have about 58% women in the US. So we spend a lot of time ensuring that equality is there for women based on their skills, their experience, and really what they can do for Sterling as leaders. So that's a huge thing for us. And we really believe that focusing on gender first is a major step for Sterling. Now with D&I for me means a little bit more than gender. It's time for us to move on to more of what's going on with our race makeup in Sterling, and also the inclusion part of it, based on just how do you show up and who are you, being able to be the person that you are and show up into the office. So those things are important. Also, just knowing that since I've been in procurement for 25 years. There's been lots of times where I've been the only woman in the room and the only Black person in the room. And it's interesting when you have those type of dynamics, on a day-to-day basis, that it's important for us to ensure that we are providing all of our leaders and all of our employees training and information in order to handle things like that. To handle being the only one in the room, to handle yourself and continuing to be professional, and to know that even though you're in a room and it may make you feel uncomfortable sometimes, it's really important to do that, because if you're successful at that, then the younger people that are watching you, that you represent, will be okay to do that as well. And then one day we'll have more people in the room and it won't be a problem. And then I won't have a job anymore. That's the key to this job, is to make sure that I am doing everything that I can in order for it to be equal. And we have the equality where you don't need this team, right? And it's something that is just normal, a normal way of business.
Yeah. Well, I highly doubt that you will be out of a job after all of what you're going to be doing for Sterling and for every, other parts of, even outside of the company as well. So, again, such a great answer from you. It's just 2 words, diversity and inclusion, but there's so much that goes into it. And I'm really excited to, kind of peel back those layers a little bit more with you today, just talking about Sterling as a whole, getting more of your insight, your opinions on things. So I truly do think that was a great way to start the show. So thank you for that. So I do want to start as we move into, kind of what Sterling is doing and what you're doing, working on with your new role with the team, things like that. So 3 pillars of diversity and inclusion. So Sterling has developed 3 of those. So can you please let us know what these 3 pillars are?
Sure. So our internal strategy is very important to us. And how do we, as I started with this position, one thing that I've done over the past 6 months is really listen and start looking at like the data that we have. So sometimes in this space that we're in, I have to listen first and then learn, and then I'm able to lead. So after performing an assessment, the 3 key things that I'm going to work on in the next 3 years. And I'm going to say 3 years because I won't go into real details on exactly what we're planning in 2021 and, focus on that. I want to really stress that this is a journey, And this journey have to have a real strategic plan behind it. So one of the things that we're going to focus on is crafting an equitable people first environment. And I know that's a lot of words, and really what does that mean for us? It means that Sterling's going to focus on being equitable and inclusive and pay attention to the experiences that our employees have, right? So we want to look at, their wellness, right? Professionally, mentally, and emotionally. And when you think about professionally, you think about how do you get a culture in an organization, in any organization, right? And who's responsible for that culture, and how do we ensure that that culture is a inclusive and inspiring and very opening culture, right? So we're going to focus on recruiting. Recruiting is really important. Our middlemen hire probably up to 20 people a year, right? And we have to ensure that we are providing the opportunity for diverse candidates to apply and be a part of our workforce. The way that we do that is to develop a diverse slate. And when I say diverse slate means that if we are looking at one position, I have to provide our recruiters and our hiring managers with the right level of guidelines on how do we ensure that we get a diverse slate of candidates to come in per job. So now we're building policies and guidelines in an effort to provide that opportunity to candidates. So when you think about diversity and inclusion, everyone thinks about, oh my goodness, it's all about hiring more diverse candidates, which it is. But once you bring them in, how do you retain them? And also once we retain them, what's the progression of these diverse candidates? So within this first pillar, we're going to deploy some programs that's going to help us retain and also progress our diverse candidates. And that is a huge thing, and we're excited about that.
No, I love that. And it doesn't stop at hiring. Like you said, the hiring takes place, you onboard, and we have to move forward and learn how to retain and keep that. And so I do like that. So
Exactly. And then our next one is inclusive leaders, right? Development. We are going to invest in our leaders. As I stated before, our middle managers really hire the bulk of Sterling, right? If we start at our executive level, executives only hire maybe once every 2 years. So we are going to spend the money to intentionally train our middle managers and our hiring managers. We want to be able to give them the right tools in order for them to impact these candidates and also these employees' lives, right? To lean in a little bit and understand your employees. And sometimes employees are different from you, right? So if we are successful at recruiting diverse employees, then our middle managers that may not qualify as diverse, they need to be able to engage and also provide accountability and empowerment to these employees. So we're going to give them the right tools in order to do so. And not only that, but we're also going to make them accountable as well. So we're going to have retention and diversity scorecards that we'll be able to track them and measure them, how they're doing. Are they successful? Do they need more training? Do they need more attention from the diversity team to come in and help them? So we're going to be very intentional about our inclusive leaders, and we're going to invest money into them so we can have the best outcome.
Oh, that's great. And I'm big for accountability, so I'm happy that's involved there. So, and it's true, and we all are accountable of all of this. So that's great.
Yes. And then our last one, but not least, of course, is the other part of my job, right? So we talked about internal and how to impact Sterling, but the last thing is impacting our communities, right? What is the social responsibility aspect of everything? And how do we ensure that we are providing our employees with the right things in their communities, because Sterling, we're really behind like social responsibility, right? Because of what we do. We are a successful industry leader in background screening and identity services. So with that being said, it's really important on guaranteeing the data that we provide to our clients, ensuring that the data that we provide to them and their candidates that are going into their organizations, that information needs to be very clear. So we want to ensure that as we provide that information, that we also provide anything that we can to ensure that they understand the data that they're receiving. Yeah. So on the social side, we are very active in that. We're also really active in social injustice as well. So the group that I have now, we're partnering this year with some nonprofit organizations to assist with that. So there's a lot of things that we're doing in the community space that we are really proud of.
Yeah, no, that's great. And again, 3 really big pillars that, definitely attainable, and just kind of unpack a lot of what is going on right now and what we can do to be, a successful organization, not only going out with working with our clients and candidates, prospects, things like that, and our partners, but also internally too with our employees, what we're building up as an organization. So I think all 3 of those were great. So moving more into our internal efforts, which you did touch on a couple of things there. So currently where we are right now, can you explain how we're trying to strengthen our internal efforts, especially with some of the ideas that you had just mentioned prior with the 3 pillars?
Yeah, so our key effort in the next 3 years is to increase our diversity numbers by 20%. Right. So as we look at, if we go to the first pillar and look at our people first environment, understanding what our data is important, right? And is anyone that's listening, it is really hard to get data for diversity, right? Because it's something that an employee will feel comfortable about sharing with you, right? So if I look at like gender, that one's a little bit easier because you have to select a gender for legal reasons. But when we start talking about like deeper involving like your race and ethnicity and your sexual orientation and your age, it's really hard because now we have to rely on data that is provided by employees, and they have to feel comfortable providing it.
Right.
Right? And then, so coming from my world before where analytics is everything, right?
Yeah.
It is everything, and you have all these metrics and numbers don't lie. This piece of it is going to be tough for us because we have to ensure that our employees trust us enough to provide us with this data. And then after they provide us with this data, then we can utilize this data and build the right programs and build the right, policies and procedures. So the way that we're going to get to getting that data, obtaining that data, is deploying our ERGs, our employee resource groups. Once we have those groups, then we provide our employees with safe spaces. So they can share who they are, they can share their data, they can share their thoughts and their ambitions. And then that way we can really build this program the right way, because we can have some information, right? Data is everything. And that's one thing that we don't have a lot of because we weren't focused on it. So we're looking to get that, and we're looking to ensure that our employees know that we are providing those safe spaces so they can share.
Yeah, I think that's definitely the biggest takeaway from what you just said there. Like, kind of, it's gathering the data, and that's so important. That's how we're going to be successful. But how do you do it the right way? How do you do it the most effective way? And with something like this, maintaining those spaces, having somewhere where our employees go. So I really do like that. I think It's great for sure. So you did mention increasing diversity by 20%. So that was one of, the KPIs that you mentioned. Are there any other KPIs, goals that are, kind of standing out in your head right now that you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, so on our diverse slate for candidates, we have a 30% guideline for that. So as our hiring managers go out for hiring and start working with one of our recruiting agencies, where they're, their third party agency or their internal recruiter, 30% is the number. Like, I want to see 30% of qualified diversity candidates in that slate. Now, once we get that, it's so interesting, because I was thinking about this before we went live, but we can have like policies, right? Policies are what's going to gut check us, because if we don't have that, and we don't have something in place to check our hiring managers, then we won't be able to obtain these goals, right? Because we're still going to hire people that are similar to us, that you relate to. You can look at them and say, okay, I want to be a part of, I want to be at lunch with this person. So we're also going to implement diverse interview panels as well, because you have, if we look at our data, our diversity data, and if I started looking deeper into the levels of where we have, let's just say, Black people represent us, right? Those levels are determining so those levels that we have, you're looking at candidates that need to be able to see themselves reflective into those levels. So those are the things that we're going to focus on. So if we're trying to get people to come in and work at Sterling, then they need to see people that looks like them.
Right.
So our interview panel will represent what looks like them. That way it gives us a chance to relate to some of the diverse candidates that are coming in, but it also gives us a chance to ensure that we are gut checking ourselves, and we're not just hiring people that are similar to us and that are the same. So those are the things that we're doing for that.
Yeah, and I love the example of the interview panel, because I think that is super important, going to an organization where you do see people that, have the same interests, look like you, things, of all of that nature. And because I see some of the most successful companies out online, social media in particular, they're showcasing their employees. So you kind of get like that real feel of like, okay, I could actually work with this person. But, Sterling takes it a step further now, like with the actual interview process. So you saw everything online, looks great. Now you're going to go next phase. It really like that. So I really am, proud to be a part of an organization, taking these steps, in a positive direction there. So
yes, me too.
Yeah. So we did touch on this a little bit earlier when talking about the pillars. So we did talk about, the community around us, our clients, making an impact there. So touching a little bit on our external efforts here. So you did, talk about partnering with nonprofits, areas like that. So can you talk a little bit more about our efforts for social responsibility?
Absolutely. So we have a few things, right? So the efforts that we have on the nonprofits, I'll talk about that, because I've already chatted about that a little bit. Nonprofits are very important for us, and social injustice is very important for us. Just the data that we provide to our candidates, our clients for their candidates, that is so important. And how they use that data, how they interpret that data is important to us as well, right? So we want to make sure that we are providing them with all of the guidance that is required in order for them to look at the data, to apply that data internally for their hiring process, and to ensure that that candidate gets the best opportunity to obtain that position. And that is something that we will always guarantee. That's something that we will stand by with all of our clients. So that's one thing. And I love that part of it, because I'm not used to doing things like that. So working with NAACP and Hope for Prisoners and Southern Poverty Law Center is awesome, right? That's an awesome thing. The other thing is, business initiatives, right? So one of the reasons I received this promotion is because I understand Sterling's business.
Mm-hmm.
I spent, 5.5 years managing $300 million of spend, understanding our cost of goods and our services. So when we look at diversity on the business side, what does that mean to us,
Yeah.
right? How do we ensure that our business is catering and is focusing on impacting communities that looks just like our employees, that looks just like our clients, right? We have to be very intentional on that. So about 2 years ago, when I was in my other position, I implemented and created our vendor diversity program.
Mm-hmm.
So this vendor diversity program is so funny because when I first came to Sterling, I used to get a lot of questions about diversity spend, right?
Mm-hmm.
How much are we spending with diverse vendors? How are we finding diverse vendors? Do we have any diverse vendors? And when I first started, all of those answers I couldn't answer. All of
Right.
those questions I couldn't answer because we were not tracking, we did not have a program. So on the business side, I started looking at how much does this cost us, right? To not have a program.
Yeah.
Right? Or we can flip it and say, how much will it cost us to get the program? Because that is a part of what our financial leaders need to understand. So when we started looking at our business initiatives, I started working with our sales team. I worked with our RFP writers, right? I work with our teams that have been in the business of, trying to find clients and trying to secure new business. And we had to walk away from millions of dollars because we could not answer these questions.
Right.
So one of the key things 2 years ago, I sat down with our CFO and said, hey, this is how much this costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may cost my team and myself a lot of time for building and creating, but if we walk away from business because we are not, understanding the value and the value of vendor diversity, that's important, right? That's crazy. Yeah. So we implemented this, and now it's like the best thing because now our RFP writers can respond to every RFP. All our clients that are key clients to our business, we are providing monthly reports on diversity spend. We're providing categories on diversity spend, and we are also providing the commitments that we have to our clients. We're actually responding to those commitments and providing, results. So those things are important to us.
Yeah.
And that, vendor diversity program is a huge win for Sterling.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't even in diversity then. That's just that's just on the procurement.
You're a natural. It was that you were already doing it. It just kind of came over. So
it kind of came over that. But it's interesting because in a lot of my roles prior to Sterling, vendor diversity program was either part of the team or something that needed to be created. But it's important, right? It's important to our verticals. It's important to the business. And now we have it, and our clients love it. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, and I think that's great too. The correlation between the two roles. What you were previously doing, and now it's here. It's coming back to you, and you can't get rid of it. It's coming back, but it makes complete sense. And you're right. It's having a program like that in place is super important. It does showcase who we are as an organization, and it showcases too. Other, the vendors that we're working with, things like that. So it's just, again, I think that is great. And I just, it's, you have a laugh about it because it did follow you over to the new, the new role. But again, you clearly did some great work there, and, we're only going to get better with what we do. So because of that, So you did mention a little bit earlier too, with everything that we're doing with nonprofits, also working with our clients and making sure we're providing the right data for them, the vendor diversity program. Anything else you want to touch upon, with our commitment to our candidates and our clients?
No, I just want to, I think the only other thing I could say about the clients is that Sterling, we stand behind our products,
Mhm.
right? And which makes us one of the leading background screening and service providers out there, right? And we spend a lot of time customizing our relationships with our clients as well. And that is a differentiator for us, that's out, from our
Mhm.
competitors. And now being able to show that we are not only will take on their account and customize it and ensure that we are following, we're making sure that we are being the best strategic partner that we can be, but we also are now focusing on social responsibility,
Mhm.
right? And that is huge for us. And that is a new thing that we are bringing to our clients. And we're going to ensure that they're a part of that as well. So this year, one of my key objectives is to get with our key clients, the top 25, and to get a voice of the customer, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Understand, like, how do you see, Sterling, the things that we provide, the data that is happening? Is there anything else that we can do to help?
Yeah.
Right? Because at the end of the day, we have to help our clients.
Mhm.
We want to ensure that as we gain new clients, we're
Mhm.
able to provide that
Yeah.
to them as well. So a combination of what we've been doing and
Yeah.
how we perform and how we partner with our clients, a combination of that in this new social responsibility, it's a huge differentiator for us.
Mhm.
And we are really excited about that this year.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited just hearing that from you for sure. So I do want to open up the discussion a little bit right now. And like, obviously we've been having, very candid discussion this whole time, but, kind of just open it up a little bit here. Our audience, if you do have questions, now might be the time to throw them at us. But what else is on your mind? Like, what are you thinking right now? Like, I've had a lot of like canned questions for you, a lot of business like focused stuff, but we're talking about diversity and inclusion. And this is a big, big topic. It might not be the most comfortable topic for some people. There's a lot going on with it. So open discussion here. What else is on your mind right now? Like, what are you thinking?
Yeah, it's interesting because there's a lot, right?
Yeah.
Uh, we think about diversity and inclusion, and we think it's just it's only for people of different races, right?
Mhm.
I just want everyone to be aware that there's 6 things that can support diversity and inclusion in your workplace, right? And those 6 things is: one, be aware of unconscious bias.
Mhm.
That's Everyone has it, right? It's not, just if you're a executive, or you're a manager, or it's based on your color. So it's
Mhm.
not if you're black or white or Asian. Everyone has unconscious bias,
Mhm.
and that is something that we have to be aware of. Um, then, as leaders, we have to communicate the importance of managing that bias.
Yeah.
How do we manage that, right? Once we are aware and we know that everyone have it, then what kind of tools do we need to provide our people in order to manage it? And and when you do see it come up, there should be consequences for it, right? And not a consequence like you have to be fired, right? Nothing to that level. But there should be things where maybe we need more training. Maybe
Mhm.
we need a little bit more, right? So we have to be intentional on that. And that's number 2.
Yeah.
Number 3, offer D&I training,
Yeah.
right? It's funny because everyone is like, Jen, you're new in this role. You don't want to do unconscious and conscious bias because, that's, everyone says that. But there's also other things out there, right? Microaggressions, right? Privilege. There's so many things that are out there that you can offer, that people haven't seen yet. There's different things out there that we can be intentional about. The 4th thing is acknowledge holidays of all cultures,
Mhm.
right? That is so simple, right?
Yeah.
That way we can support diversity and inclusion in the workplace,
Mhm.
because we care about your culture. We care about what you celebrate. We care about what happens in your house and your family, right? That matters. right?
Absolutely.
If you care about it at home and you go to the office and no one says anything about it, it's kind of like that person that want their birthday to be, identified, right? They tell you the day before, hey, my birthday's coming. And if you don't say happy birthday, then it's a problem.
Yeah.
Just
Mhm.
because they're trying to be inclusive, right?
Mhm.
But acknowledge holidays of all cultures. Make it easy for employees to participate in diversity and inclusion programs, ERGs, in conversations, right? Because one of the key things is we can always be invited to the table, but if you don't have a voice at the table, then it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? That is huge for us. And the last thing, mix up the teams, right?
Yeah.
Because some teams are created based on similarities and they're the same as the leader. Have you ever seen a team that everyone's the same? And you wonder and say, oh my God, I don't even be in the room with them because they're all the same. If I don't wear a blue shirt, then I'm not going to fit. So mix up the teams. What
Mhm.
happened to cross-functional training? What happened to cross-functional projects where you're able to go to different things, understand different things? So mix it up.
Yeah.
Those are the things that I want to share with everyone, but those are
Mhm.
like 6 ways to support diversity and inclusion in your workforce.
Yeah. And honestly, it's things that we might be thinking about on a daily basis, but might not think that, oh, maybe we don't have that problem or we haven't fully implemented it, things like that. So
Yeah.
again, it's six, doesn't seem like a lot, but there was a lot to take in there. And it's again, certain things like the holidays, like you could do that like tomorrow if you wanted to. So I think that was great, all six of them for sure. And even the last point of, mixing up teams, I learn the most and I'm at my best at work when it's not just I'm in my little marketing bubble. I'm working with people like you and having conversations because that's the only way we're going to get better. And looking around and seeing, because we're all working for the same company, we're all working for the same purpose. So how can we get there together? So I really do like that for sure. So yeah, I mean, I don't know, a part of our open conversation, like anything else, kind of on your mind, could be like real-time examples, anything you want to share with our audience?
So real-time examples of scenarios that I've seen, and let's go back to being aware of unconscious bias. There is an example where I was working for Georgia Pacific, and I was in the sourcing group, and I was called to one of the mills, and I was supposed to go there to review a machine that we couldn't fix. It broke.
Mhm.
Buy a new machine. It was $1 million purchase. So I had to go on site to really look at it and investigate and make sure that it was the right thing to do. When I got to the mill, there was a older white male that greeted me, walked me around, and gave me all of the information about the equipment and what's required, and all of the data surrounding it. And then we went to the room, right, the conference room, and there was more people in the room. And in my as I scanned the room, right, and this is where unconscious bias comes in. As I scanned the room, I saw a lot of different, older white males
Mhm.
in the room, and then there was also a black male in the room.
Mhm.
And I greeted everyone. I'm very friendly. I'm very, social. I'm greeted, but in this space, instead of understanding everyone's title and who
Mhm.
is responsible for making the decisions and the roles, I just continued to assume that the person that greeted me, that walked me around, was the actual leader and the decision maker. And come to realize it wasn't, right?
Mhm.
So even as a Black female, you know, there are some unconscious biases that I have as well, and also stereotypes. So as I walk down this path, I want everyone that I am leading down this path to know that it's not based on color. right? Biases happen to everyone, and once I realized that the black male that was in the room is the leader, we're still friends to this day. But I didn't think of it,
Yeah.
I just was focused here, and he's like, no, Jen, this way, right? I had to direct, but it happens. And as I've been in this position for 6 months, a lot of the leaders that I work with, they're like, Jen, how do we get involved? Because we don't feel like we have bias, right? And I start the conversation with, everyone has bias.
Yeah.
Right? I too have bias, right? I too need training and tools and things to help me be a better leader and help me to identify when they do come out, because they do. So that's what I would like to share with everyone, that it's not just one person's race. It's everyone, right? Everyone have it, and we have to address it as such, because if you just address it with one type of person, then you're missing out on success, because you're not going to be successful.
Yeah, I really do appreciate, being a little bit vulnerable there, sharing that story. But you take a lot away from it. And it's, it's that everyone does, encounter scenarios like this, bias like this. And like you had said at the end, it's identifying it and working on it, getting the training, getting the tools, the support that we need to move forward. So again, I really do appreciate you sharing that story. And I know our audience definitely will take a lot away from that. So we do have a question that is coming through on our Facebook page, and I do think it is a good one. Interested to hear what your answer is. So in your opinion, what's the most difficult part of implementing a diversity and inclusion program? Be as honest as you want here.
Yes. So the most difficult part of this is investing, right? So if you do this, right, you have to have, first off, you have to have buy-in by senior leadership. If you don't have buy-in by senior leadership, then you're not going to get very far, because it has to go from the top down, right? Not from the bottom up. Top down approach on the importance of it. The second piece, after you gain the support, the second piece is money and investing.
Yeah.
Because one person cannot do it. I am the leader for Sterling. We have 5,500 employees. There's no way that I can touch everyone and do this alone. So you have to have a team behind you. You have to have the money to invest in it, because the third thing is training. Training takes a lot of investment, right? So internal training, where we work with our internal team that is responsible for creating training material. And you also have to get external training.
Yeah.
Because that's important, right? What's the new things, right? What's happening in the world, and how do we keep our leaders and our employees educated and knowledgeable about what is required in order to walk down this path and this journey.
Yeah.
The next thing is that this is a journey, not a sprint, right? So if you get into this position, and someone wants results from you in 1 year, that is not successful. You will never be successful, because in order to get the data is required, you have to identify your metadata, and that's the data that you need in order to run the reports that you need, to run your scorecards that you need, to measure where you are based on your baseline onto where you're going, right? So those are the most important things for this position. So I think that's good, but but that's all the things that you need. And I just want to say, at Sterling, I have the support, we have the money and the investments. Now gaining the data is our next best thing, right? And that's what we're doing this year, is putting together, what does our metadata look like? What do I need to ensure that people are accountable? What do I need to show that our board of directors on where we are from, June of 2020 to June of 2021? How do we mitigate any issues that we have with this data and change our programs and our strategy? Because of course, we're developing the strategy, but as we get data, we may have to pivot a bit, right? Based on what we're doing. So I would answer the question that way.
Yeah, no, and it was a great question and definitely a great answer too. Appreciate you being candid there and opening up about, listen, it's not all easy. It's not going to happen in a year. There are going to be difficult parts, and it is great to hear that, Sterling is providing the things that, we need to become, even more successful organization and really develop this program and truly be successful with it. So as we wrap up the show, I do want to read, our team at Sterling does have a lot of thoughts around diversity and inclusion and what we are doing as an organization. So I do have 3 quotes from anonymous employees. I won't say their names, but I will, read these quotes, and then I just want to gather some thoughts from you on these quotes, and then just some final thoughts from the episode from you today. So I'll go ahead and read these 3 quotes for our audience. So the first one is, Sterling treats diversity as a verb. They are invested in making our workplace more diverse and welcoming and have put an amazing effort into creating programs and trainings to make our work environment better. As a woman of color, I am proud of all the efforts that Sterling has made. So great first quote there. Moving into our second one. We have many resources available that involve, support, and include all employees, a women's network, Black employee resource group, LGBTQIA+ resource group, and more. And then finally, to wrap up these quotes from our employees, Sterling embraces and celebrates our differences by respecting what every person brings to the team. Sterling doesn't make you feel like you have to hide core parts of who you are at work. I loved these 3 quotes, and that was just 3. The amount that has come in, over the past couple of weeks, months, since we've been, developing this program, making specific changes, we've seen so much great feedback from our employees. And again, those are just 3 testimonials. I have like sheets on sheets of these, so it was hard to pick 3, but I did. And even that last one, I show up to work every day not having to hide anything about myself. Like, I'm here, I'm a Sterling employee, my name is Caitlin Brower, and you guys get everything that I offer today. And it's good. And I am so happy that, someone else feels that way as well. And the hope is that, all 5,500 of our employees can too. So I really loved hearing all of that, but, your thoughts on those quotes and just any final thoughts you have on this episode.
So my thoughts on the quote, I am really impressed with our employees here, because I think those quotes came in before we even implemented anything on the diversity and inclusion side. So that means that Sterling is in tune with diversity, and we also are in tune with inclusion, because if you can show up as your true self to work, then you are in a safe environment in order to do so. Right. So that's what I would like to say to that. So I'm excited about that. But listening to that, and then also experiencing just a different side of Sterling, from the sourcing and global procurement side to this side now on the diversity and inclusion. I am really blessed and thankful, and I appreciate the work and journey ahead, right? Because it is a journey.
Yeah.
As I lead this team, the team that I am creating, we are going to impact Sterling on transformation, right? This is a transformation. This is something that internally it means so much, because we are touching everyone in the organization, not just diverse employees. We're touching everyone that is in this organization to understand inclusion and diversity. And also, as we provide these programs, they're going to be for anyone that wants to be included. Because in order to be successful in this space, you have to include everyone.
Yeah.
Right? And that is one thing that, my team, we just kicked off a CARE campaign for Martin Luther King Day, right? So it's just important that you have selected today to talk about diversity, because we have MLK Day that's happening on Monday, which Sterling is commemorating him and celebrating him, and we are off for the first time for that day, which is huge for us. Right? I didn't get to talk about our leadership and our CEO that is so, diversity and inclusion is so important to him, right? He shared with us a ticket from his grandfather to Selma, Alabama, to go work with Martin Luther King Jr.
How incredible was that? That was
Incredible. So the leadership that we have, right, the support that we have, and now placing me into this position, we are going to do great things. And I am blessed and thankful and appreciate everything about this. And the last thing that I want to leave with you guys is, I have this on my signature, right? So diversity is being invited to the party. Inclusion is being asked to dance. And just for all of you that don't know me, I love to dance. So I am all about that.
So go to the party where Jennifer is at, because you will be dancing there. So honestly, though, what an amazing conversation we had today. Thank you for everything that you have provided, answering questions, getting real candid, real vulnerable, and sharing your experiences, sharing your thoughts, your opinions on everything. I'm excited about this journey that Sterling is on right now. And I'm very excited that you are leading us on this journey, because we are going to go far. We're going to be successful, and it's going to be great. So Jennifer, thank you so much for joining me today. Thank you to our audience for joining us. Again, we do go live every Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern across Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Thank you again for joining us today, and we hope to catch you guys next week.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Caitlin. Have a great day.
Thank you.